Hi, you're on the Alice Reddit Stories channel. Subscribe to my channel as well as my Facebook page. There we can chat. The link is in the description of the video. Thank you. Enjoy watching. Story 1. Just found out my 23M best friend, 23M, has been secretly dating my ex, 24F, 4 months. Throwaway because I use my main for gaming subs and don't want this on my history. Cassie and I were together for 5 years. We started dating in high school and stayed together through college, moved in together after graduation. I've been in love with her since before our first date. She's amazing. I still think so. We were talking about marriage and starting a family soon. Then one day a few months ago, Cassie wanted to talk, sat me down, and said she decided she doesn't want kids. She didn't just mean not now, but not ever. She talked a lot about overpopulation or climate change or whatever, but I was just immediately depressed. I've always wanted to be a dad. My dad was a piece of shit, and this is something I've wanted to do ever since I was still a kid myself. When she finished talking, I told her it was over. She started crying and I was already crying, but fuck. If she doesn't want the same thing I do from the future, what else can I do? She said she's been thinking this way for years and Corona was the last straw. I'm not going to wait around and hope she changes her mind when she might not. So I moved out and moved in with my best friend Ryan. We've been friends forever, like we bonded over Pokemon cards at the playground kind of thing. He's basically my brother and his mom was my extra mom since I didn't have much at home growing up, was in a hurry to move out so I didn't take much stuff with me, and then I didn't want to go back to the apartment and see Cassie, so Ryan was doing the good friend thing and going to get stuff for me whenever I needed it. At least that's what I thought he was doing. Yesterday would have been me and Cassie's 6th anniversary and it was really rough for me. So I told Ryan I didn't want to be alone and wanted to hang out and game all day with him. He agreed and everything, but he was kind of distracted on his phone a lot, and after a couple hours he said, "Shit got dark." I'm not ashamed to say I cried. There were reasons I didn't want to be alone that day. Almost midnight last night, Ryan finally came home and was acting weird, so I asked what was up. I thought maybe his mom was sick or something. She's a teacher at a school that just reopened, but no. Ryan sits me down and tells me he's moving out. He's been secretly dating Cassie since a few weeks after we split. He says they're in love already and that she needs him more than I do, so he's moving into the apartment with her and leaving me here alone to rot. Don't even know how the fuck to process this. I don't know which one of them has broken me more. To make things worse, I messaged some of our other friends this morning to tell them what's up, and they already knew. When I got upset, they all said it was no big deal because I'm the one who broke up with Cassie. Where do I even go from here? I can't talk to my friends. My ex broke my heart, my best friend stomped on it, and the closest thing I have to family is gone because they were his family too. I'm lost and don't know where else to turn. Update. Bigger shit to worry about than my broken heart, I guess. Ryan texted me. I'm about to be homeless in a pandemic. Update 2. Thanks so much to everyone reaching out. My inbox is blowing up, but I'm kind of focused on this housing thing first. I'll catch up when I can. Sorry. Update. I kind of debated if I'd post an update on this or not. It's been a few weeks and some stuff has happened. But as the post blew up, I got a good number of really shitty comments that informed me I was a worthless piece of shit, that I should beat up my ex-girlfriend, or alternately that I was probably already some kind of horrible abuser who hated her and wanted to control her body. Also got a ton of love, support, PMs offering connections on housing, and more, but being I was already in a dark and desperate place, those other comments really twisted the knife. I had to spend some time away, not just fixing my shit, but also avoiding that stuff, because it was really not making me want to move forward. For anyone who's reading this while in the middle of a situation, wondering if you should post your story, my advice is, don't. Wait till you have some distance. Or it's just going to make things worse. One thing I want to clarify here, since a few people swung for the fences based on what I posted, I don't hate Cassie. I don't think she shouldn't move on. I don't blame her for dating someone else after I broke up with her. I do have a lot of anger still thinking about this. All that anger is at Ryan. That's it. Ryan is the one who lied to me and went behind my back, not Cassie. My post pretty clearly stated that I think Cassie is an awesome human being. Still think so. Period. We just wanted different things. Shortly after I posted, Ryan texted me to say that he'd planned to give me a month to find somewhere else to live, but since I couldn't be happy for them, he wanted me out by Friday. Looking back on it, I kinda think this was his plan all along. Cassie's parents own the apartment I lived in with her, so we paid bills on it but no rent. Ryan's apartment was expensive and his parents still paid some of his bills there, so I suspect he was looking for an excuse to break his lease and get in on that free rent instead, but I have a place to live now. Reddit helped me out after all, in a weird way. A couple days after I posted, this guy TJ hit me up on FB, "Hey TJ," with the link to my post asking if it was me. TJ and I weren't close friends before all this, but he recognized some of the details. Skipping some back and forth, it turns out Ryan lied to all our mutual friends about the situation. Apparently, he hooked up with Cassie the first time about a week after we split up. He asked some of our friends what to do and they all told him to make sure I was cool first thing. He then told them he had talked to me and that I was happy for him. So, when I started freaking out a couple months later, my friends all thought I was going crazy out of nowhere over something I'd known about for months. Once they found out what really happened, I got a lot of apology texts. Some of them I've accepted. Some are still on read. A couple of guys offered me crash space or help moving, and I wound up staying with TJ, but only till I could find somewhere else. My days of living in places without my name on a lease are over. Learned my lesson there. I found a roommate looking for a place through Craigslist and we signed the lease last week. Moving from TJ's happens this weekend. Ryan is blocked out of my life. I probably forgot some of my stuff at either his place or Cassie's, but it's whatever. I can get new stuff. I can get new friends. More than anything else, this situation made me realize the importance of having stable, independent housing and not counting on anyone else to do the right thing by me. I have to have my own back in life, not rely on others. That's about all I've got. It's nothing dramatic, I guess. No one was hit by a car, got pregnant, or turned out to be cheating. But I've never been so glad to have a roof over my head and a bed to come back to. I'm going to keep going from here, keep working on life, and I'm sure as hell going to be taking a break on the dating front. That's all there is to do. Don't forget to support my channel by subscribing, thank you. Story 2. OOP, my 33F husband, 40M, is considering conceiving a child with his ex. I'll preface with the fact that therapy is an absolute given already, so I will be seeking that out, but in the meantime need some advice to just process what to even say to a therapist when the time comes. Okay, so the title needs explanation because it is a complicated and nuanced emotional situation. Apologies in advance for rambling. I am still trying to make sense of the entire situation while grieving and just trying to get the pertinent details out for advice. My husband and I have been happily married for 3 years now. My husband had a son from a previous relationship before we got together. I have been in my stepson's life since he was 2 years old, he turned 6 years old this year, and got along very well. My stepson's bio mom, BM, and I have never been friends in any capacity, but have always been cordial/respectful on the rare times we interacted and never had any issue with one another. My husband and BM are similarly cordial/respectful and communicative around their son's needs, but not really friends beyond that. We pretty much adhered to a parallel parenting style and it worked fine. 4 weeks ago, my stepson tragically and very suddenly died from an infection. It has been just absolutely devastating for everyone. BM is especially just wrecked. Her son was literally her entire life and purpose as a stay-at-home single mom. My grief cannot compare to the level I know she feels, and I do have compassion for that. My husband is of course also exceptionally distraught. I've been doing my best to be understanding in how they both need to grieve as parents. 2 days ago, my husband said he had something he needed to discuss with me. He explained that BM approached him with a request. She asked my husband to be her sperm donor for IUI/IVF as she desperately wants to be a mom again and wants to conceive a child with the same partner that her son had. He basically made it clear it is something he is willing, even wanting, to do, but knows he needs to understand how I feel about it. Well, how exactly to communicate what I feel about it at this point, but the feelings are not good ones. I told him I needed some time to process this. My husband and I have been trying to have a child of our own for the past few months, so this is even more personally difficult for me to take in. I think I already know that I am not okay with my husband having another child with his ex. But I am thinking of suggesting we offer her financial support to seek out alternative fertility options that do not involve my husband's sperm, and quite honestly, do not involve 18 YRS of co-parenting. I'm actually not even sure what BM and my husband are thinking regarding that in this scenario. Additionally, BM is 41 years old, so there is a high probability this whole situation would be a lot of money and time spent without any results. Overall, I think I'm just in shock here. I feel disrespected and angry, but I also understand it's not really just about me here. And that both of them are struggling to cope with this unimaginable grief. I would just appreciate some level advice from people outside this situation, specifically advice on how I should convey that I am not on board with this without making it a point of contention. Edit. Thank you so much already for the responses. I feel like this is happening to someone else. It is such a shocking and emotional wave after wave, very difficult to process and think totally rationally. I honestly consider understanding and compassion to be personal strengths of mine, so I appreciate the replies acknowledging that I am not betraying that by being a firm no on facilitating this situation. I would just add that I am fortunate to be financially stable independently, and my husband and I had already set aside a fairly significant sum specifically for child support, so even had this specific scenario not arisen, I feel obligated to offer some if not all of that to BM, since it was always intended to go to her and son. Anyway, I will keep reading through replies. Thank you again, and at this point plan to speak with my husband this evening about feeling it is inappropriate to consider this now, and dealing with his grief first and foremost with professional help. Update. Thank you again to the blunt takes on my situation. Days are still mostly a blur right now, and writing out my issue and reading through the straightforward advice did help ground me a bit. I went ahead and took action on something I could control, reached out to my therapist and got a reference for a couples counselor who is specifically experienced in dealing with grief around child loss. I was thankfully able to get us fit in for an appointment this week. After I returned home from work last night, my husband came into our room and immediately started sobbing and apologizing. He had spoken with his dad that day and told him what BM had proposed. My father-in-law, bless him, had apparently really went off on the delusion of it. My husband and I had a long into the early morning talk about it, and he was able to recognize and explain that what seemed like interest in BM's request was misplaced desires. He explained that he's been so focused and excited about the prospect of planning for a child with me for the last 4 months and envisioning life as a father of 2, and it felt confusing to still be feeling that while dealing with the devastation of losing his son. BM's ask was a total shock for him too, and when you're face to face with someone grieving so deeply, asking for your help/a solution, however absurd it is, it's not always as easy to think logically. He was receptive and seemed relieved to have the therapy appointment, so I am hopeful that will be a start in unpacking these complicated and conflicting feelings. We agreed that he should ultimately end all contact with BM, but will still consider what sort of short-term/lump sum financial support makes sense with consult from a lawyer to keep it entirely copacetic. I realize some commenters find the financial part odd, but I just feel strongly about extending appropriate generosity in this transition since we have the means to do so. We also agreed to hold off on any child planning until sufficient time and counseling takes place. Also, I just want to address the comments on stay-at-home single mom aspect in defense of BM. I only mentioned that part to say how entirely devoted she was to her son. She was the primary physical caregiver, and yes, the child support order was enough that it allowed her the option to stay home full-time and live comfortable but not extravagantly. Is it the same decision I would make as a career-minded person? No, but that was her prerogative and I do respect that. I really don't know much about BM as a person, but what I do know is that she was raising a kind, funny, and smart boy who was loved and cared for, and that was what ultimately mattered. To say there's a lot still up in the air emotionally is an understatement. My husband and I are saying the right things to each other now. Who knows what it will end up being in practice? But I am hopeful at this point that my husband and I will be able to move forward together. Update: I received many very kind, compassionate, helpful comments and PMs from my original posts and thought it would be easiest to update here for those that asked because it's a wild development. I think you can see the previous posts on my account in the comments as they were removed for low karma on this account. So I found out that my husband did not tell me the truth about BM's request. The truth being that he and BM had frozen embryos when they were together from years ago and she was planning to use those. I obviously had no idea they had done this and likely would have never known if not for the fact that BM did have a successful implantation and is now in her first trimester, so my husband was forced to come clean. The distress I feel about everything that has happened in the past 4 months is beyond words, so that's it, that's the update. I don't know what to do regarding so many things about this. At least I have a good therapist. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel, there are a lot of interesting stories ahead of you.